Welcome everyone to Technology Basics, PC Troubleshooting and Maintenance. Thank you so much for joining us for today's event. Before we get started, I want to make sure everyone's comfortable using ReadyTalk, the webinar platform we're on. You can chat into us using the box on the lower left side of your screen at any time to let us know if you need help, if you have any questions for our presenter, or if you just want to say hi and let us know from where you're joining. We will keep all lines muted so we get a clear recording that you can refer to and watch again at your convenience. You're also welcome to share it with your friends and colleagues. We license all of our webinars Creative Commons, so you can share them out and spread them in your own community. We want to make these as useful as we can for people. Most of you will be hearing the audio play through your computer speakers. So if you're hearing an echo, you may be logged in more than once and will need to close an instance of ReadyTalk. If at any time the streaming audio falls out of sync with the slides on screen, we would invite you to dial into the toll-free number that Susan has chatted out in the chat window. That's a good alternative if you have any hiccups or weirdness with the streaming audio. That alternative phone line can be used with a phone or Skype to help you get a better connection to the audio. If you lose your Internet connection, feel free to reconnect using the confirmation or reminder emails that you would have received. And if at any time you do dial into the phone number and get disconnected, just feel free to dial into that other number again at your convenience. You can also reach out directly to ReadyTalk support at 800-843-9166. We are recording today's webinar and we'll make it available on the TechSoup website. You can find all of our past webinars as well as upcoming events listed at TechSoup.org/community-events. /community/events-webinars. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. You can also watch webinars on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/TechSoupVideo. Within a few days, we will be sending this full presentation along with the recording out to you in an email, so keep an eye out for that for any parts that you may miss or want to rewatch. And you can tweet us today at TechSoup or using the hashtag TSWebinars. My name is Becky Wiegand and I'm the Webinar Program Manager here at TechSoup, and I'm happy to be your host for today's event. I have been with TechSoup for 8 years, and prior to that was the accidental techie who never had an IT or tech role in my life, but always ended up having to help manage the technology at the small nonprofits where I worked in Washington, D.C. and Oakland, California. So I've been in the position of having to troubleshoot with no real troubleshooting experience. So I hope that we'll get a lot out of this webinar today from hearing from Spencer Day, who is our expert on the line, the Outreach and Partnership Development Lead at Interconnection. And he is they're one of our donor partners, Interconnection is, for our Refurbished Computer Initiative, which is factory refurbished hardware that you can get, computers, laptops, or desktop PCs, laptops, tablets, monitors, all that kind of stuff that you can get that are factory refurbished, that come with warranties. I'll talk a little bit about that program later on. But I just wanted to mention that Spencer is joining us from Interconnection based out of Seattle. And he is a techie at heart, and he has worked with organizations meager, mighty, and anywhere in between is what he said in his bio, to help them bridge the technological divide. He leads their efforts to help underprivileged communities gain access to and understanding of the technology that is vital to their growth. So I'm really excited to have him joining us on the line today because he is an expert in a lot of these areas and can help give you some tips to start with that will hopefully save you some time and headaches and money in having to bring in external help if you don't have full-fledged IT staff at your organization. You'll also see in the back end assisting with chat Susan Hope Bard, who's joining us here from TechSoup. She'll be on hand to help you with any of your questions or to help with any audio or technical issues today. So looking at our learning objectives for today, what we are hoping that you'll get out of this is to gain a list of things to do to help, first off, maintain the computer hardware you already have, and to help you maintain your computer software, because both of those are kind of key in helping you solve most of your problems that you may encounter. And then we want you to become more confident with these first steps on how to troubleshoot. So we want you to feel a little bit more able to go in and defrag your computer, or go in and just rebooting things so that it can start up quicker, like shutting down apps that start on on startup. Things like that. We want you to feel a little bit more confident about those. And then I also would hope that you'd learn a little bit about hardware and software options if and when you decide you need to upgrade machines, because that is also a big part of the process of any kind of technology planning, is looking at what you have and deciding, is this actually working for our needs? Maybe it is now, and here are some things to keep it working. Maybe it's not, or maybe it won't be in 6 months and you really need to be budgeting for how you can improve your technology over time. So those are the objectives we have for today, and we also hope to answer your questions along the way. Before we get started with the topic at hand, for those of you who aren't already familiar with TechSoup, we are a nonprofit as well, and we are working toward connecting everybody at nonprofits, libraries, and foundations, churches with the technology to help them succeed at fulfilling their missions. We are everywhere on this map that is blue, so that's pretty much everywhere with the exception of a handful of embargoed countries. You can find our donation programs. Like, we're not in the Sudan, unfortunately. So we are not in every place, but we are in many of them. I'd love it if you would chat into us right now and let us know from where you're joining today, because I imagine most of you are joining from the United States just based on the time zone of this webinar. But if you're joining us from outside the United States, I would recommend giving a visit to our TechSoup.global site and selecting your country from this drop-down so that you can find the local program in your area or region that will serve your donation needs and technology needs as you move forward. But everyone is welcome to join us for our webinars. I want to dive into some poll questions right now to get an idea of where you're at, the people who joined us on this webinar today. We have about 100 people in the room. And thank you all of you who are chatting in to let us know from where you're joining. But I would love it if you would answer this poll question by clicking on one of these radio buttons on your screen. What's your role in maintaining or managing computers at your organization? Maybe you don't actually do any of the hands-on troubleshooting or maintenance. Maybe you help out because you don't have any IT staff, which was always my situation. People would look at me and say, "You're young, you must know how to fix the server." And I would say, "I know how to set up your MySpace," back in the early 2000s and laugh at them. But it often was my role without any IT staff on hand. Maybe you manage all of the PCs and technology as part of your role. Maybe that's your job. Maybe you are the technical staff. And if there's a different role that you have, go ahead and comment in chat. Maybe you are the person that helps manage a tech vendor or a contractor that you work with, and it's your role to sort of liaise with them as problems come up. I have people chatting in. Charles mentions we have a solid IT partner, but I troubleshoot as able. So that's great. You have somebody you can rely on for bigger technical needs, but you have somebody you can call in when needed. But when you don't need them, you do a little troubleshooting. We have Laura commenting, I help out, but have IT we can turn to particularly by phone. Diane comments that she's in that accidental techie role. That's what we like to call. Jay comments, I lead the group of volunteer techies. So a lot of different scenarios out there. I'm going to go ahead and show the results. So it looks like we have a big chunk that's in the not really managing technology by choice, but you don't have IT staff. And then we have a sizable chunk that manage PCs and technology in their role. So keep in mind that we have framed this webinar as technology basics. So we are going to talk about PC maintenance and troubleshooting, but we are looking at it from sort of the basics and moving on from that. But we won't be covering advanced topics today. So if you are joining us as a network admin or somebody who's a more higher end tech expert, you may not get a whole lot out of this event, though you're totally welcome to stay and participate with us. And you may have tips to share that we can share back out with the audience. But we are gearing this webinar toward those technology basics, the things that you want to make sure you're starting out with that anybody can do whether they have tech expertise or not. And then one other question for you. How many computers are you helping to maintain? And this just gives us an idea of maybe the types of issues you would encounter. If you really don't have any computers that you're maintaining and you're just interested in picking up some skills or some interesting information, that's totally fine. If you're smaller than 20, then maybe you're dealing with an office that's not networked, that doesn't have an Exchange server or isn't using a cloud file sharing service like Office 365. We won't get into Exchange and kind of the bigger, more complicated networked issues. We want to look at this kind of from an individual PC standpoint today. But maybe you're helping manage a computer lab of public computing machines. All of this is helpful for us to get an idea of. So feel free to chat in if those are the things that you're encountering as well. And I'll just give a couple more seconds so that everybody has a chance to respond. And it looks like we've got a sizable group that are managing 20 or more machines, almost 30%. But if we add up all those smaller groups, it's about half that are dealing with fewer than 20 computers, more than half actually. So that's really helpful to get an idea of. Thank you for taking the moment to respond to those questions. I want to go ahead and jump us into the content at hand today and invite Spencer to the line to talk to us about those basic computer maintenance and troubleshooting tips that he can share with us today so that we can come away having a bit more confidence in how we do this when we're encountering a problem, and how to hopefully set things up so that you're not having to react all the time to, oh my gosh, something's broken. Welcome to the program, Spencer. We're so glad to have you join us.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here. Interconnection has been working with TechSoup before, as you said earlier, but this is definitely something that we wanted to jump on and be a part of, is to help out this network, because I know how important it is for people to have the tools necessary to keep their computer running, keep it going. It's so crucial in today's day and age that we have our technology still up and running, ready for us whenever we need it, because it's used for networking, it's used for working on documents, video editing, picture editing, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I definitely think that this is going to be a great opportunity to kind of cover some of the basics, and I hope that I can help out to everyone that is out there today. To start off, basically, I just wanted to give you some confidence that some of these things are very simple. These are easy things that you can do to keep your computer healthy. So don't feel powerless. Don't feel like this is completely out of your range. You can do this. If you can log on to a webinar, you can definitely do some of these things. So my two objectives for today are to, one, learn more about your computer's capabilities, and then two, learn how to better protect your computer. I think if we can accomplish those two things, you're going to feel a lot better about the maintenance of your computers moving forward. And having said that, IT help, we discussed earlier, it can be necessary. There are certain circumstances where things are out of your depth. You are out of your depth, and that's fine. That's the reason why you have the support systems. They do charge money. It is a little bit pricey at times, especially for in the nonprofit world, because Interconnection is a nonprofit, and we were bootstrapped just the same way as many of you out there. So we know exactly what it's like to try to do things like this on a shoestring. But I just wanted to let you know that this is going to get you to a certain point, and hopefully it'll help the vast majority of you to keep the simple problems away from your computers. So we're going to launch into the next slide. It's going to talk about computer setup. This is just our foundation. What I wanted to cover with this is verify your computer's plugged in. So I started out as a technician a long time ago fixing computers, and I've had so many customers come into me over the years and talk about how their computer, it's just not powering on. And there are plenty of circumstances where actually like the wall outlet didn't have power to it. A fuse blew for that particular wall outlet, so their computer isn't powering on because there's no power to the computer. It's just not possible. So verifying that everything is plugged into the computer, verifying that there is in fact power to the outlet is very important, so that we can start working on the computer and making sure that the computer actually works. The next part is making sure that your computer has internet connection, either by Ethernet connection with a cable or connecting through Wi-Fi. So just verifying that you have a connection is very, very important, obviously. the next part, and this is probably the most important part about your computer setup, is making sure that it is in a good location. Cool, dry place, well ventilated. One of the bigger issues that I see in the repair world for computers is that people will take their laptop and they'll set it on their bed, and it'll trap all that heat into your computer. Or you'll take your desktop and you'll shove it into a drawer of a desk where there's no ventilation. It just traps the heat. Heat is very, very bad for computers, as I'm sure you can imagine. But most people it doesn't occur to them about that because they're not feeling the heat. It's not present to them. So that's something that's very, very important. Keep it well ventilated so that it can cool itself, because a fan is the only thing, for the most part, that will cool your computer. Dry, obviously, that is very, very important. I had a lady the other day that came in, and she, her desk in her house is right in the kitchen next to her pet's dog bowl. And she put her desktop down on the ground right next to the dog bowl. And her computer one day magically stopped working. And of course it was because there was water damage, because her dog likes to drool. And so it's things like that you need to be very careful of. Obviously, like pet hair or something of that nature. These things can get sucked into the computer. Dust can be a factor. So make sure that it's in an area that can be is away from all of the traffic, but is still capable of staying cool and dry. So on the next slide, we're talking about operating systems. To kind of set the stage for this in discussing software and hardware, I wanted to address the fact that probably a lot of you are on different operating systems within Windows. I'm not going to really cover Mac because that's a whole different issue. There are different instructions for that. So I'm just going to stick to Windows. However, I know that there are probably many of you that still have machines that are all the way back at XP, all the way up to Windows 10, which is the most current one. First off, for Windows XP and Vista, that is no longer supported by Microsoft. And that's difficult because those machines are no longer capable of doing a lot of the processes that are out there in today's day and age. So those are very difficult to keep in good shape, maintained, just because there's no support from Windows for it. So that's something to be cognizant of. That's something to remember whenever you have a machine like this. Is if you're having compatibility issues with some of the programs you're trying to run and you're running Windows Vista or XP, that's probably a good reason why, is because these systems are outdated. Windows or Microsoft is going to stop support for Windows 7 and Windows 8. Windows 7, they're going to stop support in November, and in Windows 8, they have already stopped supporting that. Because Windows is going to the same model that Apple is, where they only support one operating system at a time. So Windows 10 is going to be their operating system. So that's not anything to panic about, but over time, you're going to notice that those operating systems are going to slowly fall behind. We at Interconnection have been using Windows 7 for a long time because it's very, very stable. And it's been a good operating system for us whenever we refurbish computers. But we think that this is a good move to Windows 10, and we're going to wholeheartedly embrace it. So how does that relate to the computers that are out there? There are plenty of computers that are in this world that are not capable of going to Windows 10. And so it's very difficult for me to give you a hard and fast piece of advice as far as capabilities for computers whenever there's all different types of computers in the world. So what I'm going to try to do is give you advice that will apply to Windows 7 through Windows 10. And if there is any difference, it's very small for as far as like the instructions for how to get the desired result. But most of this will be geared towards both Windows 7 and Windows 10. So the next slide. Updating your operating system. I can't recommend this enough. Updating is very, very important. This is Microsoft's way of keeping your computer in good shape, making sure that it is compatible with all of the programs that are available to it at that day and time. Also, it is updating it so that you're protected from some of the more malicious antivirus or viruses and Trojans and those types of things that are out there in the world. So I think it's very important for you to keep your machine updated as much as possible. However, and this isn't a hard and fast rule, but don't upgrade your operating system unless you know what you're doing. That is a very, very big step for your computer, and you need to be aware of the risks if you make an update or an upgrade to your system rather than an update. Those are two completely different things. Upgrading your system is going from Windows 7 to Windows 10 or Windows 8 to Windows 10. Updating it is just getting it to the newest version from Windows 10 to the newest version of Windows 10. So it's definitely an important distinction between the two. I'm not saying that upgrading is bad. I'm simply saying that there are machines, laptops that are say 5 to 7 years old that drivers are not out for your screen, for video, for audio. Your speakers might not work. Your mouse might not work. So those are the things that you could run into because it's just not updated enough. Windows 10 is very new. So these are things to consider, and you may need to call someone that has better knowledge of something like this if you don't feel comfortable with making that upgrade and risking having some issues whenever you make that upgrade. So don't want to belabor the point, but that's the difference between the two, and just be careful if you're making an upgrade. The next one is talking about startup programs. The importance here, and we're going to start delving into how to actually make your computer more efficient, more just quicker for you, faster reacting. That's kind of the name of the game, because it is a pain in the butt whenever you have a computer that just takes forever to load anything. It takes forever to get online once you've first opened it up and started it. That bugs everyone. So starting from the very beginning, the programs that launch right whenever you open your computer, I think it is crucial to go through this periodically, say once every 2 or 3 months, to see what it is that is running with your computer. The way that you can check this is to go to, and I've got a couple boxes right there that'll show you this, but msconfig in your Windows search bar, which the Windows search bar is down there. Whenever you click Start, there's a search bar there. And we're going to keep going back to this because this is a great way for you to find whatever it is on your laptop that you're looking for. If you type msconfig into it, and then whenever you select msconfig, the program, and the box pops up there, if you select the Startup tab, it'll list all of the programs that launch whenever your computer is started. And so then you can select which ones you want enabled or disabled. Now is a good time to just make sure and be clear that whenever you are choosing some of these things, make sure that you know what that thing is doing. So if Skype pops up there and you're like, hey, I never use Skype, you can disable that and that's fine. But if something comes up there and you don't know what it is, don't touch it. That's my recommendation. You can Google it and try to find out better what it is, but it can be dangerous if you just get in there and start closing out everything. So I think this is a good way to pare down how many programs are launched at the very beginning. Hardware. So hardware is an important part of selecting computers that are good for you and recognizing whether the computers that you have are still capable of what it is that you want them to do. So hard drive space is very, very important. It lets you know as your hard drive fills up, your computer is going to slow down because there's just more things that your hard drive has to sort through to be able to find the information that you need. Being able to find out how much space you have left on your hard drive. I have instructions on here. It says open File Explorer. That's the little file that's down there in the bottom left. You select that, and then whenever the window pops up, you select this PC. It'll pop up with your hard drive, your C drive that's there. and it'll show you however many gigabytes or terabytes. Hopefully you don't have megabytes because that computer's a little bit old then. But if you have a certain portion of gigabytes that are available, that'll let you know your capacity. Next one is RAM, and I don't want to get too bogged down in the technical details here, but essentially RAM is memory. It's called random access memory. It is memory that is available to you to work through things. This is your quick instant memory that allows you to quickly work through things. The more RAM you have, the more things you have available to you to work on at one point in time. So if you're one of those people that has a ton of programs open all the time and a ton of tabs open all the time, your RAM is what is going to dictate whether you are able to manage all of those things at the same time or not. Eventually you will fill up your space. And so I have instructions there to check to see how much RAM you're currently using on your computer. Type Resource Monitor into your Windows search bar, select the Memory tab, and it will show you how much of the RAM you have available. And people will have like 4 gigs, 2 gigs, 4 gigs, 8 gigs on up to 16 or 32 gigs even. So that's just a good way to check and see how much of that you're using. The processor is the brains. It is what actually works through all of that. So the RAM is what it makes available all of the information needed to quickly work on it. Processor is what actually works on it. So this tells you what your computer is going to be capable of working on. Some processors are older than others, and that will dictate what you are capable of doing. So if you have a bunch of computers that you're managing, and they are, say Core 2 Duos or something like that, but you need to do video editing, these Core 2 Duos are older and they're not capable of handling that. Whereas if you get to an i5 or an i7, that will get into the territory where they are a little bit more capable of handling what it is that you do on your computers. Now, if you're just doing web surfing and checking your email, then it's not necessary for you to have an i7 computer. You can have one because, hey, it's fun, but you don't necessarily need it. So we just touched on the hard drive. What this defragmentation does is it compiles the information that you have stored on your hard drive, which stores all of your information on your computer. It takes that and it compiles it in a way that is very easy to find. So picture your spice rack in your house. If you have your spices all over the place, you're going to have to search through all of them to be able to find them. Whereas if you have them organized by Italian spices and spicy stuff and salt and pepper and that kind of thing, it'll make it easier for you to find exactly what it is that you're looking for. That's exactly what this is doing. It's arranging it so that it's an easier way for it to sort through and find what it is that it needs. So I've listed instructions on here for everyone to find the disk defragmentation program. File Explorer, this PC, and then right-click on Windows C and go down to the bottom of the box and select Properties, and that'll pop up with a new box. Within that new box, you can select Tools, and on that Tools tab, you'll have Disk Defragmenter or Optimize. Just depends on whether you're on Windows 7 or Windows 10. And once you select that, it'll pop up with that program, the Disk Defragmentation program, and you'll see all of your drives available to you. So then you can select the Windows C drive, which is your hard drive, and then you can choose to defragment it. Now, on some of these systems, it'll allow you to set that up as a schedule to where it'll do it in the background. It'll do it for you. It'll say, hey, would you like to do this every week or every 2 weeks at 2 a.m. in the morning? So that makes it easier for you so that you don't have to deal with this all the time and think about it. But I do think this is something that should be done periodically because it just kind of keeps all of your files nice and neat, and it will help your computer run a bit quicker. So I think that's important. On this next slide, this is for Check Disk. This is a different tool that Windows has. But this shows you the box there that I was talking about where you select the Tools tab, and you'll have available both disk defragmentation and also error checking, which is the Check Disk tool. What Check Disk does is it scans your hard drive to find file errors, and it fixes them. If it can. If not, then it'll block off those sectors. But it does everything it can to fix some of those file errors that happen over time. Now, these file errors are some of these unseen things that you're like, why is this program not working? Why is it glitching, or why is it catching? There are several circumstances that these can play out and cause issues with your computer. So this is another great thing for you to do so that you can keep your computer running well. The process to get to this obviously is very, very similar, but all you're going to do is go to that and select check disk. Once you select that, a box will pop up, which we show there, and I would recommend selecting both of the options that are available and then clicking check. Now, with Windows 7, it won't check immediately. What it'll do is it'll say, we can't check it now. We are going to check your disk whenever you reboot the computer, whenever you restart it. So that's something, you don't have to do it immediately. There's no pressure as far as that's concerned, but it's like scheduled for the next time that you reboot your computer. So that I think that's also set aside some time. Whenever it's doing an error checking, it can take 30 to 45 minutes. It just kind of depends on the size of your hard drive and how many things you have on it, but that does take some time. So just, if you're shutting down your computer at the end of the day, maybe it might make sense for you to restart it and let it go through the restart process so that it'll check your hard drive as you leave, and you can come back in the morning and it's ready to go. Next slide. Close your tabs and apps, please. Now, my wife isn't listening to this, but I've given her this advice numerous times. Never works. I completely get it. On my computer right now, I actually have a bunch of tabs open, so I'm totally guilty. But this is something that definitely slows down your computer. People leaving their web browser open with several windows with a ton of tabs open. Programs are also a big culprit. So you'll have Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Adobe Acrobat and all of these programs that are constantly running at the same time. It causes your computer to get bogged down. It just can't handle all of these processes that are going on at the same time. And closing down the tabs and apps that you have, or as many as you can, will help it be more efficient, will help it run better. I like to say that whenever you have tabs that you go to every day, like for instance, I go to Salesforce every single day. I don't need to leave that one open whenever I leave work at the end of the day, because I know I'm going to have to go to it the next day. But if there's a page that I'm working on a document, or there's a page that I need to come back to the next day and it's a reminder, I get it. You can leave it open. That's totally fine. But this is just a good practice to get into so that you keep things a little bit orderly, and your computer is able to handle a lot of the tasks that are going on a little bit better.
I am perennially guilty of that, Brian. Sorry, Spencer. I was responding to somebody named Brian in the chat. I have about 40 tabs open at any given time, so that's a really good reminder to me to do that as well. I'm going to let you keep going. I just wanted to interject to share that I am like your wife and guilty in that, as I'm sure many of us are.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I'm there too. It's just, I keep tabs open, and I'm sure a lot of people are like that. I keep tabs open as much as a reminder for me to go back and do certain things as anything. So I totally get it. But it's one of those things where if you don't close those down, your computer's still working to keep those available to you. That's what it's doing. So not going through and closing those down just taxes your computer, and it forces it to work too hard. And then you start wondering why whenever you open up this new program, it's taking forever. That's why. It has all these things that it says, okay, I'm juggling 50 things that I'm trying to make available to you. Eventually, your computer is going to cry uncle. So for the next slide, uninstall programs. This one is very, very important. If you have the ability to do this, this can help you remove unwanted programs or programs that you're no longer using. So I guess those are still unwanted. But really programs that got onto your computer that shouldn't be on there. That's a great way to handle this issue. If you go into the search bar, type in uninstall programs, and then there will be a program that pops up that says uninstall or remove program. Select that, and the window that pops up will show you a list of all the programs that are on your computer. Going back to the startup programs, if you don't know what a program is, don't remove it. Just don't get into a situation where you're taking away stuff that you need. Normally Windows will protect you against that, but it's still just a good practice to not delete anything that you don't know what it is. I still would recommend Google searching it and trying to find out what it is, because generally there's pretty good information out there. And worst case scenario, contact somebody that has more knowledge than you and say, hey, do you know what this is? Or call Interconnection. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. But stuff like that, just make sure that what you're removing from your computer you actually want to remove. So all you'd have to do is just find the program that you want and right-click on it and select uninstall. Now sometimes it'll pop up with the Windows version of uninstall, which is very simple and you just follow the prompt. Sometimes it'll pop up with, say you're uninstalling like McAfee or something of that nature. McAfee will have their own uninstall program that will pop up, and you'll have to follow the prompts, and it'll say, do you want to uninstall it? And I'll say yes. And I'll say, do you really want to install? I'll say yes, yes, and then it'll ask you another 4 times, and then finally you'll get to uninstall it. But generally speaking, all you have to do is just follow the prompts, and it'll get you to